for people that are not familiar with who you are, can you introduce yourself?
Thanks. Yeah, as far as the going to high school together, I think you had mentioned that when we first met, and but I know I recognized your wife when we connected on Instagram because she went to
Yeah,
to
yeah,
school, right?
yeah,
And so yeah, I think like you're jogging my memory, but I think I knew that.
yeah.
But, yes, hi, I'm Saige, Saige Jones, but Saige is fine. And I do have a podcast. And guess what it's called? The Saige Jones Podcast.
You know what? It's easy to remember then. You'll never
Yeah,
forget it.
yeah, it's easy to remember. People say like sometimes it's harder to brand something with your name, sometimes it's easier, but I called my in high school, I mean, I'm sorry, in college, I called my radio show Saige Jones Radio. So it just made sense for me. So that's what I went with. And yeah, I'm from Northport, New York, Long Island, New York, and have been in media and radio for pretty much since college. So kind of made sense for me to start a podcast. And I don't
Yeah.
know if you want me to add anything else to my intro, but I'm so used to being on that side of things. So I don't want to like
No, that's totally
say too much.
fine. I'm here to listen to you and your story. That's funny though. I understand highly what you said. Like whenever you're being interviewed or I'm being interviewed by somebody, it's like, oh, like I'm always on the other side. So like you kind of like I almost start to take over the interview, and I'm like not saying you're doing that in any way. So I know the feeling though. So don't worry. I'm totally fine with that. Take over as much as you want. It just leads for a better conversation.
Yeah.
So what is the Saige Jones podcast?
So my podcast is focused on positive and motivating stories. So it's kind of like therapy for me in a sense and motivation for me. So it's a little bit selfish. Actually, in one of my episodes that I released I think 2 episodes ago, my guest Psych, when I had described this to him, he was like, you should call it Self-Absorbed with Saige. And obviously we were joking, but in a sense it is really for me. But the idea is if it helps me, then my hope is that it'll help other people. And it can be from entrepreneurs to people who are just kind of dealing with, can we curse on here or no?
You just be you. You be you.
Okay. People who are dealing with challenging situations and doing it like a boss, or people who are even just like still figuring it out. Like I'm very much still figuring it out. So
Sure.
I've kind of realized that I'm putting myself in the pot of people who are just being honest about where they're at and what they're figuring out and stuff. So I mean, I could give you more examples of people I've talked to, but ultimately it could be from entrepreneurs to people just figuring it out, to mental health, to it's pretty much just like what is this life and how can we make the most of it? How could we be successful? How could we be successful at work, in our personal endeavors, and in our personal challenges?
Yeah, it's super fascinating. And